Hello, thanks for joining us. Today, from a Zoolander revival with numerous celebrity cameos to a brutal and beautiful revenge drama starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Welcome to Encore's weekly film show.
Got there. I guess fashion's changed.
Meet the biggest supermodel in the whole world. This is all.
Are you like a male model or a female model? Oh.
Usuados poucos não sompe.
And I'm joined in the studio by France 24's film critic Lisa Nesselson. Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. Now we're going to start with The Revenant. It's up for 12 Oscars, including Best Actor for Leonardo DiCaprio. Does it live up to the hype?
Honestly, I'm going to commit heresy here. I'm not sure that it does, but then that's the problem with hype. This movie doesn't cure cancer. It doesn't broker peace in the Middle East. It's magnificent to behold. It's rather long, and it's got a very basic revenge tale at its heart. It's about a fur-trapping scout named Hugh Glass, who's played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and another guy, Fitzgerald, played by Tom Hardy, does something pretty unforgivable, and so Mr. Glass spends the entire movie in pretty diminished physical condition, trying to make his way to the guy who done him wrong so that he can express his displeasure.
Okay, well, let's take a look at a clip of the film. Well, Leo does look a bit in bad shape there. At the heart of the action is a bear attack. Tell us more about that.
Well, that's when everything really, really starts going wrong. Now, of course, there's been a lot of complaints in Hollywood about how there aren't enough roles for people who happen to have non-white skin. This movie has roles for a lot of Native Americans and First Nations people, and I think there's a casting coup worth talking about, which is that they didn't give the role to an all-white bear. Here we have an all-white bear. They looked a little farther afield, and they got a bear that looks more like this. So we're going for authenticity on that front. It's a start. What else can I say?
There's quite a vicious bear attack, but we won't go into much more details about it. Now, you only need to be 12 to see The Revenant in France. Would you go along with that?
Well, that surprised me, although I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to expose young people to the idea that we have it pretty darn good here in the 21st century with indoor plumbing and heating and grocery stores and stuff like that. Very few of us get mauled by bears. Very few of us have to cauterize our own throats with a burning twig. And really very few of us have to remove the entrails from a dead horse to use it as an improvised sleeping bag. And certainly I want people to know that this is a very impressive undertaking. It was supposed to be a 3-month shoot. It ended up being 10 months. The photography is stunning, only in natural light. They rehearsed a month for the bravado 10-minute uninterrupted opening shot, but I didn't care as much as I wanted to, and the action didn't consistently feel organic to me.
It sounds a little bit like a gory history lesson. Well, he won the Golden Globe, he won the BAFTA. Everyone's saying it's Leo's year for an Oscar. He looks pretty rough. That seems to be one of the things that wins you an Oscar these days. What do you think?
Well, you know, if you're 30 or younger, DiCaprio has been acting your entire life. We know I'm not aware of him ever giving a poor performance. He's an extraordinarily fine actor, and why we should give it to him for this rather than some of his previous performances points out just how silly the Academy Awards can be. But here's Mr. DiCaprio talking about what the film means to him.
I did as much preparation as I possibly could. Like I said, very little is written about this time period, so it was almost like doing a science fiction movie. I've always been driven and attracted to working with filmmakers that can transfer a very specific, powerful cinematic vision and take us somewhere else.
Well, next to a very different film, Zoolander 2, in which Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson are back as Unlikely fashion models.
Oh, why do you say unlikely? I mean, look at these guys. 15 years ago, Ben Stiller played Derek Zoolander, a ridiculously unintelligent fashion model whose biggest rival was Hansel, played by the equally goofy-looking Owen Wilson. And that movie found ways to make fun of the fashion industry that were incredibly silly and pretty entertaining. And here in the sequel, Zoolander and Hansel are forced out of retirement to help the international law enforcement community. And, well, let's just watch.
Derek Zoolander, I'm with Interpol. I need your help.
She's hot. I trust her.
Someone's trying to kill the world's most beautiful people.
Oh, fudge! Peace out, world.
All of them died with your signature look. This is blue steel, right? We need you to infiltrate the world of high fashion.
We're back!
And everything I read about it, people are going on about all the celebrities in it.
There are a fairly infinite number of celebrities, but they're all very, very game to play with their own images, and that's one of the things that's sort of childish and silly and fun about it. It's so stupid. It's good. And it may be ridiculous, but a lot of thought went into it. And just how dumb is Derek Zoolander? Well, there's actually a scene where he's holding uncooked spaghetti in front of his son, and he's very frustrated, and he's saying, but what did Mom do to make it bend? What did she do to make it soft? That's how dumb he is. And here is Zoolander on the cover of French Vanity Fair for this month, for March. And yet, because we're in France, the essay inside manages to make reference to the famous late theorist Roland Barthes, which I don't think you get a lot in the English-speaking world. And also they mentioned that the original Zoolander was one of Terrence Malick's favorite movies. So this shows us that the delicious idiocy of fashion can coexist with intellectual stuff. And the main actors were in Paris a few weeks ago for a press conference, and the film is set in large part in Italy, and they would ask whether they would consider bringing another story to Paris, and absolutely deadpan, they said, well, yeah, I mean, if Paris sort of gets its fashion thing up to snuff, I mean, it's not really a place you think of when you think of fashion.
It definitely sounds right up your street. It actually, just watching it, annoys me a little bit, I have to say. How does it compare to the first Zoolander?
Well, I only saw it once 15 years ago, but I think they've done a very good job of continuing the characters if there was any call for that. But if it didn't irritate you, what we just showed, then you'll probably enjoy it.
Okay. Well, now to a French language film called L'Orchestre de Minuit, or Midnight Orchestra. And what's it about?
Well, this is a sort of interfaith mystery. It's about a young man who left Europe, left Casablanca 30 years earlier for the United States, where he's made himself a career as a businessman. And he's been called back by his father, one Marcel Boutbol, who it turns out was a famous musician decades earlier in Casablanca. And the son really didn't know anything about that. So he's come back to find out what was, he's come out back to find out, like in so many movies, who he really is and where he really comes from. And it's full of a lot of religious humor, but that's very respectful and funny. The casting is very entertaining. It's not a perfect movie, but it's a lot of fun. Let's take a look.
C'est mon père. Papa?
Tu sais que l'orchestre de ta papa reste toujours à casa. Hand Kamel, il est dans l'exil de fou.
Ahmed?
Fawzi, elle est terroriste.
Vous voulez dire religieux?
Non, terroriste. Elle n'a pas pris dépasser 8 centimètres, elle est terroriste.
C'est n'importe quoi, ça. Il m'a laissé dans le doute, dans le flou, toute ma vie, sans identité. J'ai besoin de savoir, j'ai besoin de comprendre.
Fais comme les autres. Signe-moi tes parts de ce cabaret et va construire ton avenir et celui de ton fils ailleurs avec les tiens.
So for non-French speakers, is it worth seeing?
Well, it's a massive hit in Morocco right now. So if you're interested in knowing what a local population finds entertaining, it's educational. And it's got lots of layers you couldn't really tell there, but there's some madcap stuff going on. There's a spirit of reconciliation. It's one of those movies where many, many lives have been affected by the tentacles of one event that nobody really has all the puzzle pieces to. And so as the movie goes along, it has a satisfying place that it's headed to. And it's very enjoyable. Yeah,
Okay.
I do recommend it.
Right, well, I'll definitely go and see it. Now to a documentary co-directed by the French starlet Mélanie Laurent, and it's doing very well in cinemas here in France.
Indeed it is. This is one of those success stories that I think makes France kind of special because it's gone up from week to week. So it's now in its 11th week in theaters, and in its 6th week, it took a jump 29%, and that is word of mouth. And so they responded with more screens, but it wasn't more advertising. It wasn't more anything except people telling other people, go see this movie. What is it? It's a documentary about how perhaps we're not doomed as a species. So Melanie Laurent, as a parent, thought she'd read somewhere that half the human race, or a great many people, would be wiped out entirely in the next 100 years, and was there anything we could do? And so they took a small crew, went to 10 countries, and looked for people in agriculture, in local sourcing, in safe manufacturing, who were actually making a difference now, who were saying, no, we don't have to do it in the same stupid exploitative ways that are ruining the planet and making our lives less sustainable. And it demolishes a lot of that received wisdom.
Of course, Melanie Laurent, the French actress and director now, is best known to international audiences for her role in Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds. She seems to be doing all kinds of things, doesn't she?
Yeah,
Very
and
eclectic.
for some reason, French people seem to dislike her for that. She's sort of too cute, too smart, too talented, too involved in the outside world. But she was wonderful as the manager of the movie theater that the Nazis come to in Inglourious Basterds.
Okay, Lisa, thank you so much for joining us here on France 24 for our weekly look at the movies. Now we're going to leave you with Demain or Tomorrow. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
We had to do something. So we traveled around the globe looking for the men and women who are offering creative alternatives.
It's always so hard.
We didn't start with, shall we save the planet? Because that was too grand. We just start with where we are.
There is no perfect democracy or economic models, but what seemed to emerge from our journey was a new vision for the world, where each community is more autonomous, therefore more free.
En faisant tout à la main sur un tout petit territoire, tu peux produire autant qu'avec un tracteur sur un territoire 10 fois plus grand.
San Francisco has an 80% landfill diversion rate. Everything is reduced, reused, recycled, or composted.